Good afternoon, everyone. We do begin with breaking news this noon concerning the death of Soul Train host Don Cornelius. There are several reports today that he was found dead in his California home this morning.
In regard to a black person who would raise one finger about something as harmless as Soul Train, with all of the evils and all of the oppression, the disparity that exists in this country, is more than misguided, but because I love black people so much, I'll use the term misguided.
Don Cornelius is one of the most celebrated black celebrities of all time, and yet his final hours were spent in absolute suffering.
Cornelius, how do you feel about no? One question, sir? Okay. All right. I just, one question, I was just gonna ask one question.
I come to watch Soul Train every day, so thank you so much for all of your contributions.
The likeness.
With many speculating someone closest to him had been responsible for his death. Back in 2012, Don Cornelius left behind two substantial life insurance policies worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, which went to his ex-wife despite their bitter legal battle and divorce 3 years prior. The creator of Soul Train was discovered dead in an apparent site at his home, according to police. The 75-year-old was found at his mansion in Sherman Oaks, California, with a reportedly self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. It has been revealed that his ex-wife, Victoria Chapman Cornelius, whom he hated according to TMZ, will receive around $300,000 in insurance payouts. Cornelius and his second wife, a Russian model, finalized their divorce in 2009 amid allegations of domestic abuse from both sides. He told an LA judge at the time that he was suffering from significant health issues. He was believed to have suffered a stroke and undergone brain surgery in recent years, which left him in considerable pain. That morning, police found Mr. Cornelius lifeless at his Mulholland Drive home. He was pronounced dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound about an hour later at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, according to the coroner's office. Police officer Sarah Faden confirmed that authorities have ruled out foul play. Detectives have not found and are speaking with the 75-year-old's family about his mental state. The 911 call was made by one of his two sons from his first marriage to wife Dolores, according to TMZ. His death prompted many to reflect on the positive influence he and his show, Soul Train, had on pop culture, music, and the African-American community. Aretha Franklin, an early performer on the show, told people, "It's just so sad, stunning, and downright shocking. A huge and momentous loss to the African-American community and the world at large." The soul singer added, "God bless him for the solid, good, and wholesome foundation he provided for young adults worldwide and the unity and brotherhood he single-handedly brought about with his most memorable creation of Soul Train." Reverend Jesse Jackson told KNX Los Angeles that Cornelius was a transformer. He added that he talked to Cornelius a few days before his death, and there were no signs that he was upset. This led many to speculate that it was actually Victoria who was responsible for Don's death, especially since she stood to gain the most from it. Quincy Jones expressed his shock and deep sadness over the sudden passing of his friend, colleague, and business partner, Don Cornelius. His contributions to television, music, and our culture as a whole will never be matched. "My heart goes out to Don's family and loved ones," Jones added solemnly. "Don was a visionary pioneer and a giant in our business," he continued. "Before MTV, there was Soul Train, and that will be the great legacy of Don Cornelius." Clarence Avant, former chairman of Motown Records, emphasized Cornelius's enduring impact on music, especially within the black community. Soul Train was the first and only television show to showcase and put a spotlight on black artists at a time when there were few African Americans on television at all, and that was the great vision of Don. Music mogul Russell Simmons also paid tribute to Cornelius on his blog, calling him one of the greatest music legends there was. Simmons highlighted Soul Train's role in providing a platform for artists who had been marginalized in mainstream media. To win a Soul Train Music Award meant that the most sophisticated tastemakers in the world loved your work, Simmons reflected as he remembered Don. In his later years, Don Cornelius faced challenges in his personal life. In 2008, he was arrested at his Mulholland Drive home on suspicion of domestic violence. He later appeared in court on charges of spousal abuse, initially pleading not guilty before changing his plea to no contest the following year. As a result, he was placed on 36 months probation. Cornelius's second wife, Victoria Chapman Cornelius, a Russian model, filed for divorce in 2007. Their relationship was marked by turmoil, with allegations from both sides including restraining orders and claims of pepper spraying, as reported by TMZ. Soul Train, the iconic dance variety show, began its journey in Chicago as a local program and aired nationally from 1971 to 2006. Created by Don Cornelius, who served as its host and executive producer, Soul Train broke racial barriers and showcased black culture through funky music, stylish dance moves, and innovative showmanship. Throughout its 35-year run, Soul Train featured legendary artists such as Michael Jackson, James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle, Marvin Gaye, and Barry White. It holds the distinction of being the longest continuously running syndicated program on TV. Cornelius also established the Soul Train Awards, honoring musicians and expanding the show's impact. Additional accolades included the Soul Train Lady of Soul Awards and the Soul Train Christmas Star Fest. Famous for his sign-off catchphrase, "You can bet your last money it's all gonna be a stone gas, honey." I'm Don Cornelius, and as always in parting, we wish you love, peace, and soul. Cornelius left its mark on television and music culture. After stepping down as host in 1993, Cornelius remained grateful to the musicians who contributed to Soul Train's success. Reflecting on the show, he once remarked, "I figured as long as the music stayed hot and important and good that there would always be a reason for Soul Train." Born on September 27, 1936, in Chicago, Donald Cortez Cornelius had two sons with his first wife, Dolores. Don Cornelius was also named in alarming allegations involving young women linked with Playboy. According to former Playboy staffer PJ Maston, Cornelius was accused of locking up and essayed two teenage Playboy bunnies many years ago. Maston described the episode as one of the most awful things she'd heard while working at Playboy, implying a major cover-up that went unnoticed. Cornelius allegedly tied up and viciously SR'd two young Playboy bunnies decades ago. Maston said of the incident, "It was probably the most horrific story I've ever heard at Playboy. This story is the story of a massive cleanup that never hit the press." Maston, who worked for Playboy from 1972 to 1982, stated that Cornelius was a Playboy VIP and a familiar face to the women. He was hanging at a Hollywood dance bar where the bunnies frequented when he spotted the victims, two sisters who had recently joined Playboy. He allegedly encouraged the sisters to join him in the bar's VIP area, then invited them to his house for a party with the intention of exploiting them. Maston claims, "These two young girls got in his Rolls Royce, went up to his house, and we didn't hear from them for 3 days. We couldn't figure out where they were." Maston recounts that they finally discovered the girls' whereabouts when one of them contacted a bunny mother at the Playboy mansion and provided their location. Joe Piastro, Playboy's chief of security, went to pick them up and discovered them bloodied, battered, and the girls, who have not been named in the documentary, claim that Cornelius imprisoned them in separate rooms at his residence and tied them up and bound. Maston stated, "There were wooden objects that they were sodomized with, and one sister could hear the other sister being brutalized. It was horrible, horrible." She further stated that the victims did not notify the police and were urged to remain silent about the incident. Meanwhile, Cornelius's VIP rights were never suspended, and he returned to the club the following week. Cornelius's son, Tony Cornelius, defended the late television personality against the allegations, telling People magazine that Maston's tale is a unbelievable story without real proof and full of salaciousness. Now, these allegations come at great contrast to how the world views him and his life story. Donald Cortez Cornelius was born in Chicago, Illinois on September 27, 1936. His father worked for the Postal Service and his mother was a homemaker. Growing up on the South Side, Don attended Deuceable High School where he developed a passion for art and contributed cartoons to the school newspaper. After graduating in 1954, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps and spent 18 months stationed at an airbase in Korea. Upon returning to the States in 1956, Cornelius held various jobs, including selling tires and working for the Chicago Police Department. It was during this time that he married Dolores Harrison, his childhood sweetheart, despite having a family to support their two sons, Anthony and Raymond, and only $400 to his name. Don left his job in insurance to pursue a career in broadcasting. He enrolled in a 3-month broadcasting course and in 1966 landed a job at WVON, a radio station in Chicago. There, he worked as a disc jockey, news reporter, and announcer, marking the beginning of his influential career in media. A year later, Don transitioned to television as a news and sports reporter hosting a Black's View of the News on WCIU, a Chicago UHF station. At the time, WCIU also aired youth-oriented programs like Kitty A Go-Go and Red Hot and Blues, featuring African-American dancers moving to popular music. Recognizing the potential of the youth market, Cornelius organized concerts by local musicians at high schools around Chicago, dubbing the tours the Soul Train. His goal was clear: to portray Black youth positively on television. "I had a burning desire to see Black people depicted on television in a positive light," Don later reflected. This initiative wasn't just about entertainment. It aimed to fill what he saw as an opportunity gap rather than a talent deficit, as noted by Reverend Jesse Jackson. As the Soul Train tours gained popularity, Cornelius persuaded WCIU that the concept could thrive on television. Inspired by Dick Clark's American Bandstand, Soul Train secured sponsorship from Sears, Roebuck & Company, a Chicago-based, and premiered on August 17, 1970. Don assumed multiple roles: host, producer, and advertising salesperson. The show aired live every weekday afternoon, showcasing local talents like Jerry Butler, The Emotions, and the Chi-Lites on its debut. The response was immediate. Soul Train became Chicago's top show among Black audiences. Within a year, Johnson Products Company, a major Black hair care brand based in Chicago, joined forces with Cornelius to syndicate the show in Atlanta, Birmingham, Cleveland, Detroit, Houston, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia starting October 2, 1971. The inaugural syndicated episode featured Eddie Kendricks, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Bobby Hutton, and Honey Cone. Within another year, Soul Train expanded to 18 additional markets. Recognizing the void in television showcasing emerging Black musical talents despite Motown and soul music's widespread appeal, Cornelius positioned Soul Train as the Black counterpart to American Bandstand. "Almost all of what I learned about mounting and hosting a dance show I learned from Dick Clark," Don acknowledged. He continued to oversee the show as writer, producer, and host, eventually moving its base to Los Angeles, though maintaining a local version in Chicago until 1979, hosted by his assistant Clinton Gent, a prominent Chicago TV personality, dancer, and athlete. While Soul Train initially aimed to highlight Black artists and catered to a Black audience, its impact transcended racial lines, attracting a growing white viewership over the years. It became a groundbreaking platform for bridging racial divides through music. At the forefront of this cultural movement was Don Cornelius himself. As the charismatic host, Cornelius embodied the essence of Soul Train with his stylish attire, including his iconic afro, mirroring the fashion and vibe of the artists and audience members. Beyond music, the show featured lively Black dance segments like the famous Soul Train line, where audience members strutted their stuff for the camera, including notable figures like Rosie Perez, Fred Rerun Barry, and Walter Payton. While predominantly showcasing Black acts, Soul Train occasionally featured white artists such as Elton John, David Bowie, Robert Palmer, and Hall & Oates, reflecting its broad musical spectrum that also included jazz, hip-hop, and reggae. Don Cornelius himself was integral to the show's allure. His sharp attire, towering platform shoes, and smooth demeanor defined a style that elevated performers into crossover stars. His signature sign-off, "And you can bet your last money, it's all gonna be a stone gas, honey." I'm Don Cornelius, and as always in parting, we wish you love, peace, and soul, became legendary. Soul Train wasn't just a show, it was a cultural phenomenon and a lifestyle brand ahead of its time, influencing fashion, dance moves, and music tastes. As Kennard Gibbs from Vibe magazine put it, "You watched that show so that you knew what to wear, you knew how to dance, and you knew which songs were cool." Despite its popularity and influence, Soul Train faced challenges. Don struggled to secure advertisers and a network sponsor, which would have brought the show to a wider audience at a consistent time slot. This struggle frustrated him throughout his career, hinting at underlying racial dynamics that hindered broader recognition and support for the show. However, it wasn't only that white CEOs overlooked Cornelius and his businesses. Many Black media executives appeared to dismiss his contributions, as he was never featured on the covers of Ebony or Black Enterprise publications. Furthermore, Soul Train's success resulted in copycats and competitors. Dick Clark launched a Black-focused music and dance show called Soul Unlimited for ABC in 1973, and MTV and BET networks created television series focusing on Black music and musicians in the 1980s. Soul Train became less of a must-see TV event as the genre gained more exposure. Regardless of his accomplishments, it appeared that Don was always fighting a difficult battle. Cornelius's fame over the years led to appearances on talk programs, television shows, and movies such as No Way Back, 1976, Roadie, 1980, Tapeheads, 1988, and Jackie's Back, 1999. In 1975, he co-founded Soul Train Music Company, a soul and disco music label that released the album Don Cornelius Presents the Soul Train Gang. Despite these initiatives, the Soul Train enterprise dominated his attention for the remainder of his career. Cornelius founded the Soul Train Music Awards, an annual award presentation that recognizes the finest in black music and entertainment. Dionne Warwick and Luther Vandross hosted the first show on March 23, 1987, and presented Stevie Wonder with a Lifetime Achievement Award. He later established the Soul Train Comedy Awards. Cornelius left his job as Soul Train host in 1993, and a number of guest hosts took over. In an interview with the New York Times, he stated, "I had come to believe that the era of the well-spoken, well-dressed Dick Clark, Don Cornelius type in a suit and a tie was over. I am just convinced that people want to see people on TV who are more like themselves." Don continued to work behind the scenes on the show until 2006, when first-run episode production stopped after 35 seasons on broadcast. When the show finished, Don shifted his efforts to making a film about it. He told the Los Angeles Times, "It wouldn't be the Soul Train dance show. It would be more of a biographical look at the project. It's going to be about some of the things that really happened on the show." Don's life fell apart once Soul Train ended. He married for the second time in 2001 to Victoria Chapman, a former Miss Ukraine and adult film actress. Cornelius was arrested at his Mulholland Drive residence in Los Angeles on October 17, 2008 for felony domestic A. He pleaded no contest to misdemeanor domestic violence and was sentenced to 3 years probation, a 52-week domestic battery violence treatment program, 300 hours of community service, and a stay of 100 yards from the scene of the incident. Victoria filed for divorce, which took its toll on Don. In the divorce documents, he stated, "I am 72 years old. I have significant health issues. I want to finalize this divorce before I die." He and Victoria divorced in 1990. According to TMZ, he had a stroke in recent years and underwent a 21-hour brain surgery in 1982 to address a congenital abnormality in his cerebral arteries. He had seizures for years after the operation and had an aneurysm in 1987. His declining health caused him to become quite depressed. He called his son Anthony around 3 a.m. on February 1, 2012 and complained, "I don't know how much longer I can take this." Former Soul Train host Sheer Moore told EatonLine.com that he believed Cornelius was suffering from the effects of dementia or Alzheimer's disease, in addition to his other diseases. "I hope that wherever he is now, he's at peace," Moore said. "I don't know how he got to this place. I don't know what made him take his own life this morning. But after we shed our tears, after we say our prayers, after we put him to rest in our own ways, I hope there's a lot of celebration." While Don Cornelius's death was heartbreaking, his legacy shone brightly for millions of people who were amused and impacted by his vision of black culture. While he did not survive to see the Soul Train film he envisioned, Cinqua Walls played Don Cornelius in the 2019 television film American Soul. The film told the narrative of Cornelius and his ambitious endeavor to spread black culture to millions of young people who were unfamiliar with it. Most recently, there seems to be a bit of controversy surrounding Soul Train, as the voice behind the show's opening seems to be suing the show. Joe Cobb and Don Cornelius met while working at WVON, a black radio station in the 1960s. Cobb, age 22, first used the now famous term Soul Train on WVON. "I was just pranking," Cobb adds. But Cornelius enjoyed his pranks so much that he had Cobb present Soul Train. The television show began tiny, airing on the Chicago UHF station WCIU Channel 26 before making it large, moving to California, and enjoying a long run in syndication. Cobb's soulful Soul Train could be heard while watching an animated dancing locomotive bounce along on screen from 1971 until 2006. Cobb claims in a federal complaint filed in Chicago that, while his entrance to the show can still be heard on DVD box sets of Soul Train, syndicated reruns, and cell phone ringtones, he no longer receives any money. Cobb, now 80, claims his royalty checks halted in 2008. He is suing Paramount Global, CBS Entertainment, and Black Entertainment Television. the current proprietors of the show, for at least $75,000 in back royalties. I didn't give permission to use it, Cobb explains. I didn't sign off on using my voice and the Soul Train scream. He was on air at WVON and WGCI for several years before retiring in 2000. Today, he resides near Little Rock, Arkansas, and spends part of his time selling popcorn at Ginger's Popcorn. For decades, Soul Train burst into homes on Saturday mornings, including hip dance techniques and unforgettable performances such as Aretha Franklin and Smokey Robinson singing at the piano, the Jackson 5 with Michael Jackson performing The Robot, and early hip-hop sensation Grandmaster Flash rapping The Message. Cobb's lawyer, Manadiel Jenkins, claims that his client has attempted for several years to obtain information from various entities associated with Soul Train in order to be compensated for the use of his voice, without success. Cobb was a member of the Screen Actors Guild in the 1960s and claimed he stayed with the union that represents actors and other entertainers even after I relocated to Arkansas. However, he claims to have severed relations with the union now known as the Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, or SAG-AFTRA, after Cornelius sold the show's rights. According to Cobb's claim, SAG-AFTRA informed individuals involved with the production that they would be receiving releases to sign, waiving their rights to additional remuneration. He claims he never received the letter and has been attempting to obtain information from SAG-AFTRA, which has informed him that it has no record of his work. As described by Don Cornelius himself, I am the voice of Soul Train, Cobb says. It's like I never existed. And not only that, even my history in broadcasting, those 40 years I spent in Chicago, there's no record of anything there. Nothing. In 2012, Magic Johnson's business obtained the rights to Soul Train. BET purchased the Soul Train Awards brand in 2016. Cobb claims in his lawsuit that BET approached him about using his scream during the awards show in 2014 and offered him $1,000. He claims he declined the deal, but BET used the scream nonetheless. This lawsuit seeks to vindicate Mr. Cobb's rights and to ensure he is compensated for his valuable contributions to Black American and American popular culture, the complaint states. That's all for the video, folks. Thanks for watching.